prioritizing self-care in your life. Tell me about your journey with that.
That's all new to me now, to be honest. I have been, and I'm still, it's part of the journey because I'm still learning how to do it.
Sure.
Having been a caretaker for my late husband, as well as my kids and so on, and currently for my 98-year-old grandmother who's suffering dementia.
Wow.
I'm helping with that. I'm still in the process of trying to figure out what self-care means to me.
Sure.
Because I think because I put so much effort into taking care of these other people, I've lost myself.
Yeah.
So I'm at my rebuilding stage, if that's what you want to call it.
Yeah.
So for me, self-care is about learning to prioritize myself and put my needs first, because I have not done that.
Sure.
Goes back to my flexibility. Yeah, I can help other people and be there for other people, but are other people there for me? And if not, how do I put myself in a position to not allow that to affect me in a negative way?
Sure.
Because it can. When you feel like you're doing so much for other people and you don't get that reciprocated, it makes you feel lost and lonely, and that's how I've been feeling. So I'm trying to prioritize myself with, setting some boundaries.
Yep.
Making sure what I want to do is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And if it's not what I want to do, I'm going to tell you that no. Because no is a sentence.
It is. It is. And you've heard that a lot on the Field podcast, and you'll continue to hear it until every woman in America understands, or in the world, no period is an acceptable sentence that doesn't require over-explanation.
Exactly. And it's taken me a long time to learn that, because, growing up, I was always told no for things that I felt like I didn't think I was doing wrong or was asking the wrong questions. But so it's been ingrained in me to often say no, but I was doing it for the wrong reason. So now I'm coming to myself with this rebuilding period where I'm learning to say no for the right reason. So that is all part of my self-care. And then just trying to get more joy out of my life. Instead of, just going to work every day and just doing the things that I feel like I have to do. Whereas I want to do things that I feel will bring me joy and be fun, and, just kind of recapture that. When you get, for me at least, when turning 50 and now being 54, I'm like, well, my years ahead of me are a lot less years ahead of me.
I hear you. I'm 53. I know.
So it's like, I need, time is of the essence here, and I want to make sure I spend it wisely and do the things that I enjoy. So that's where I am right now, and trying to discover this self-care moment for myself.
I love that. I think you brought up a really good point, the joy and the fun. Both Brady and I's therapists have told us separately, y'all have to have more fun. You got to make more room for fun. And fun being, you want to do it because you want to do it. It doesn't have to have an end game or a meaning other than it's fun. But I don't think that is something that I don't think our generation understood that. We did the thing, we graduated from high school, we did the thing, we got married, we had the family, we pursued the career things, but we didn't make room for fun, so I think that's really challenging too. Talk to me about confidently setting boundaries. You touched on this when you were talking about self-care and how that boundaries had to become a part of that. Talk to me about your journey with that, because when we met you, when you talked about being a caregiver, holy cow. I mean, you were pouring everything you had into your late husband and your daughter. And you were wore out emotionally, mentally, and there was nobody pouring into you at that time. So talk to me about boundaries.
I think for me, setting boundaries from the time that when I was being a caregiver and trying to maintain a home and working and all of that was so much different than it is now. Yeah. I think it still is the same concept. I just did, at that point, I was running on, just going. I didn't have time to stop and think about boundaries. I was trying to make sure my husband was, getting to his appointments and getting all these other things taken care of and making sure my daughter was going to softball. It was just so much going on. And I didn't have what I felt was the right support.
Right.
In order for me to allow myself to set boundaries. So over the course of time, looking back on that, I realized that maybe I would not have been able to do boundaries just because of all that was going on, because I would have felt selfish about it, I'm sure. But now, for me, I'm at a stage of my life where it's important that, I can help and still manage some things, like my grandmother, helping her. But at what point do I have to stop and say, okay, I need to take care of these things for myself in order to continue to do the things I need to do for her? Because when I do for her, I want to be able to do it with that joy, knowing that,
right?
You know what I mean? Instead of like, this is a chore and I'm being resentful and all of these other things. So, and I think that's where I was before. Years ago, when I was taking care of my husband, I was resentful. I felt like I should not be in this position to be doing the things that I'm doing for this person at this point of my life. I mean, we were both under 50. And, that was the time where we should have been doing a lot more together. And unfortunately, I was mad. So, coming now, I think about that and I can kind of kick myself about it. But hey, I'm learning to deal with my emotions, which is helping me to set healthy boundaries. Because when I feel my emotions, I allow myself to feel them. Whereas compared to when I was younger, I didn't do that. And when you internalize those things, they come out in a negative way. So for me, it's about allowing my emotions to take place and dealing with them and just kind of going with the flow and knowing that it's okay to feel the way I feel and say no and to do what I want to do when I want to do it.
Yeah. Oh, I think you said that so beautifully, and the journey of that. And this goes really nicely into taking care of our emotional health as much as our physical health. You already said that you got to feel them, you got to pay attention, or they're going to come out and show up in some other way.
Yeah.
So, so talk to me about that. I mean, and what have you learned from that?
Taking care. I'm a proponent of therapy. I was in therapy right toward the beginning of the lockdown when the pandemic started. And, I started with the therapy after my husband died because I wanted to learn how to deal with the grief, because my mother died when I was 14 suddenly, and I never dealt with that grief.
Gosh, wow.
So for me, dealing with grief was one of those things where, okay, how do I, navigate through this again without going through what I went through when I was younger?
Yeah.
So for me, having a therapist was top notch for me. It was just an outlet and a place for me to go to get those, get my feelings out, but also learn how to cope with those feelings. Because sometimes we can go through grief and not understand what coping with grief is about. Yeah. So that kind of helped me sustain some of my emotional balances or imbalances at the time, because, not only in therapy was I able to talk about the grief, I also realized, I was ADHD.
Wow.
Yes. Wow. And it kind of made me realize, now I understand why I'm not able to do this and why I handle things this way. So it's kind of, for me, that helped me discover the things about myself that I never really knew, although I questioned it, but it was good to hear somebody validate it or help me validate it. So I had to learn how to, continue to navigate that new finding, because I was in school. I had just started the doctoral. I was still in the doctoral program, wondering why I couldn't finish projects.
Man. And that's what and to do that with ADHD and no help, I think those diagnoses, I got a couple of diagnoses couple of years ago, and with anxiety and a form of OCD that's not the obvious way it shows up, and all kind of tied together. And and my husband was like, yeah, glad we finally named that.
Well, you know, it's funny because I was, I also was diagnosed with OCD years ago. It's it's the kind of OCD where, you know, the ruminating thoughts. My thoughts are constantly.
Me too.
Yes.
Yep.
You're constantly thinking about things and it's just playing over like a movie in your mind.
Yep.
So that, and I've learned to manage that, to be honest with you, but just having that and then topping that off with ADHD, I also have anxiety. I mean, I can get spazzed out if something is going on in the world that I have no control over, but it just brings so much anxiety to me. And so for me, it's trying to balance all of this at this point of my life has been not a difficult challenge, but it's just been one of those things where I'm more aware of it. So I'm trying to find the balance so that I can be okay with having those diagnoses and not allowing it to keep me from moving forward in a normal way.
Yeah, I think that's so true. Yeah, like you can get those, but you can't let them define you. You got to like, all right, I know this. What are the tools? What do I need? You know, what do I need tools wise in terms of my self-care? Do I need any medication or, you know, food, whatever it is? Everybody's got to decide what their journey is with that. But it's that balance of like, because it is kind of an aha moment. You're like, that makes so much sense now. But also not let, embracing, we'll talk about the layers later, embracing that part of you, but also, okay, how do I live with this? How do we move forward with this? Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's really helpful for people to hear that. And amen on the therapy piece. You know, Brady and I both dove in with our own therapist 3-4 years ago. And it's a game changer for us. Now you got to find one that first people, sometimes it's really hard to find those people you trust. This is my third go round in my life. Yeah. And it took me really till the third go round to really, really, truly dive in where I felt safe enough to do so. But but it's because there's a lot of stigma about therapy. Yeah. And it's better, but we're still surfing through that. So I'm so glad you brought that up. And thank you for sharing those parts of your journey. You're doing this really well right now in just how you show up in the world, but how we can support ourselves and other women in living unapologetically in a world that doesn't want us to live unapologetically, and especially doesn't want Black women to live unapologetically.
Sometimes I think about the state of the world and how, as a Black woman, who am I in this mix of things that's going on? Yeah. It's not like we've never had the pushback on us or
not new.
No, it's not new. It's just more people are making it more evident, or I don't know. It's more. First of all, more Black, as a Black woman, we're standing up for ourselves more.
Absolutely, you're like, we are sick and tired of this crap.
Yes, we are. We're sick and tired of it, and we're tired. And not only that, but to be honest with you, we're physically exhausted.
Oh,
we're
absolutely.
Mentally exhausted.
And the stats that are out there medically in terms of Black women's health. And the differences between white women's and other ethnicities it's right there. The numbers are 100%. It's not a surprise. And it's that whole emotional health, physical health connection. Yep. It takes a toll. It takes a toll. It is literally changes your lifespan, the kinds of diseases you deal with, how prevalent they are. It's killing Black women in a way that is unacceptable and always has been. And so, I mean, you talk about living with joy earlier too, but living unapologetically in that, in this culture. I mean,
and you know what? And I've had to internally decide for myself that I'm okay with being a Black woman. Yeah. No matter what is going on in the world, no matter what, how often, I walk into certain spaces and I, may get looked at a certain way, or, just at work, being in a position or office where I'm the only Black woman in that particular office. I have to look at that as, okay, I'm unique. I'm special. I'm not the one that's that should be having the issue. But at the same time, being unapologetic about that, and trying to maintain that unapologetic,
stance,
focus. Yeah.
Yeah.
It does become exhausting to some extent, but it pushes me to want to do more for the girls who look like me.
Yeah.
And I think that's important because in the generations that's coming up, they're faced with a totally different perspective or issues that, as Black girls, in our generation, I may not have dealt with.
Sure.
Yeah, there was still the racism and there was still the adultification bias. That's all of that is still going on in the Black girl community. But I have to think about my journey and apply what I've learned or what I'm learning in my journey, how to apply that to younger girls who look like me, because they look up to Black women who look like me. And my journey is not for naught. I'm not doing this solely for myself. I have a daughter. She's 22. I deal with the Southside Giving Circle. We work with organizations where our money is to help support organizations that are for young Black girls and women. So that's important to me. And I think no matter what this world and what this society is trying to tell Black women about themselves, because a lot of times that's what it really boils down to.
And people that can't have your lived experience. That's the audacity of like, how the hell do you know?
Exactly. And there's so many people who think they know more about being Black than the Black people know. And that's to me, and as a Black woman, that's even worse because, we as Black women, we come together, we stand for what we want and what we believe in, and we get stuff done.
Yeah, you do.
We really do.
Super spent. No, it's so true.
We get stuff done. Now, that's not to say other, ethnicities and other groups don't, but I think we have a unique place in this society where because of who we are, because of what we've dealt with, we have to come together, and that's being unapologetic. We have to continue to fight for our freedoms and things we want because nobody else is going to do it for us. And that's what I feel. And I think that's important to continue that for the generations coming up. So for me, I'm going to maintain and continue to do what I need to do and continue on this journey so that the little Black girl who's looking at me doesn't look at me and say, oh, I don't think I can do what you can do, or I feel like, I can't get to that place. No, yes, you can. And this is what I'm going to do to make sure you get to that next level, because that's important.
The importance of setting and coming back to your why and your values in everything you do. Talk to me about your values journey and how that helps inform the things that you put your time in and invest in.
For me, it's important that values are and beliefs to me are surrounded by my faith. And I think to me, faith is the hedge of protection that I use to maintain my sanity, for one, because I think, as a Christian, and I grew up in the church, but, somewhere down the line, I shifted and decided, became a little bit more involved in the non-denominational. So for me, it's important that my faith, whether it wavers, whether, sometimes I just feel like I don't have it, it still comes back to me. So my values are simply based on how I believe in something that has been instrumental in my life. So if I have gone through, the losses that I've gone through, or, whether I'm sick or somebody else is sick or whatever pain or stress or anything that has come upon me in a way that I have often felt like I can't deal with this, my faith always tends to get me back on track. So using that, and my values are, being able to accept the things that I have no control over, that has to be a starting point for me as well. But, learning how to appreciate life and those who live differently than me, or, focusing on the good in people, even when there are not always the best, but knowing that somewhere deep inside, they have that goodness. It's just a matter of for them to find it. I don't have to necessarily help you find it, but
sure,
if you're talking to me, or if you're, opening up to me about some things, I want to be able to be there to listen to you. Being on the job and knowing that, I can go to work every day and deal and work with people who don't always have my same values, but who are respectful. Because to me, being respected means you're earning my respect, and I want to earn your respect. Once I've lost all respect for you, then I don't want to deal with you anymore, because I think that is key to any friendship, any relationship, or a working relationship, or whatever, is respect.
Yeah.
So that's important value for me. And I think also just being able to stand up for what is right is an important thing for me. If I believe in something, I think it's important to voice my opinion about it to some degree, because I can start voicing my opinion and get all the way out there. And sometimes I have to reel myself in. But it's important that, I try to be respectful for that too, because everybody doesn't believe in the same things. And nowadays with the climate is what it is. What can you do? You try to control some things within yourself. At least I do. But for the most part, some people don't have values, or some people don't have beliefs, or they're just completely being drawn out by false untruths and things of that nature. So for me, it's always important to determine what's true, what's right, what does the data say? Because I can sit here and talk to you all day about what my opinion is, but at the end of the day, I want to know what the data says about what you're trying to convince me to believe. So that's how I try to, allow my values to take part. But faith is probably my biggest value that I have to really stand on, because I can honestly say I would not have come this far without it. God has been good to me. Despite the things I've gone through, I believe that my faith in him, and knowing that all of the things I've gone through have not really got me yet to where I need to be, but they're getting me there. So
yeah. Thank you for that. That was so important. You hit on something I think is so important, is that the ability to see, that there's good in there somewhere, even if the person hasn't found it yet, allows us to continue to maintain our humanity, I think, and see others through that lens as well, when there's maybe not a lot of evidence otherwise.
Yeah.
But, I think
people are arguing about things now, especially on social media, that have no real meaning to them. And the people are going back and forth about stuff about that. Okay, what is your database?
Yes, exactly.
And it's like, it's a waste of time. And I sometimes I do get caught up in these conversations, but I have to remember that, you can have an opinion, but is your opinion, what is it based on? Because feelings are, I get it, but
they can lead us astray.
They really can. So,
absolutely. Don't tell me something about my own lived experience that you can't have any concept of. Please.
Exactly.
Please stop. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that. That was so good. Living out of your own expectations versus others' expectations. I think this can be a really challenging one too. So talk to me about your journey with expectations.
That's probably been difficult for me, because growing up and not having a lot of support. And I say that to say I didn't realize I didn't have support when I was younger, but now looking back, I know that. So my expectations were always based on, what my mother may have wanted or expected me to do. And, all of these different other such scenarios in my life at the time, I kind of had to grow and find a place where I felt I was supposed to be, because You know, my mother and father were separated. He moved out. She died. He came back. He had another child, you know, when he was married to my mother. And there was all these different scenarios and complex situations going on that my expectations were, I didn't know what they were. And the trauma in all of those things, I think, distorted my expectations.
Sure.
So I think, having said that, I'm at a point, having gone through the journey I've gone through, my expectations for myself are based on what do I believe that I need for myself and what do I want for myself? Because others can tell you what you should be doing or how you should be doing it. But at the end of the day, I have to, you know, for me, it's about contemplating and ruminating. Thoughts about
we can talk about that all day.
It's like, okay, let me think about this one thought over and over and over again and see how well it, you know, turns out. But I mean, I think for me, having the quiet time and being able to say, you know what, I can't, others are always going to have expectations for me and I can't always meet them. I just can't.
Right.
And I think I had to learn, based on my growing up when I was younger, that because of those situations that I was going through in home life, you know, I've carried that with me, and unintentionally or subconsciously not recognizing that I was trying to please others, number one. And number two, not knowing where my place was in the world. And that kind of shifted what my expectations was. And I never thought about what was expected of me or what I had to give of myself that I was okay with. So I think, you know, other people are definitely, and I don't expect that to change, you know.
Right.
Just going
people
to work
are always going to have expectations. Absolutely.
Exactly. When I go to work every day, you know, my boss expects me to do my work and do it a certain way or whatever the case may be. But, you know, that's just part of life. But how do I approach that so in a way that, number one, it doesn't stress me out. And then number two, it doesn't define me, because others' expectations, if we listen to them all the time, they become who we are. You know,
right. I mean, we take them on
and we shift and change and mold ourselves to fit what other people want of us, and that's not fair. I think I've had to determine for myself, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it when I want to do it. And if I don't want to do it, I'm not going to do it. And if I need to change who I am, I want to do it on my own terms. Because I think if I allow myself to just put expectations on myself, then it'll be easier for me to change the expectations if I have to, without anybody else being affected. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, that was great. Thank you so much for that. That was so good. So good. Accepting the layered aspects of ourselves. You've had a lot happen in your life, and not, you know, and good, bad, different, hard, wonderful, all those things. So talk to me about accepting all those layers of our lives and of ourselves and your journey with that.
You know, I think there may have been a point in my life where all of those things become too heavy of a burden to carry. That it just has weighed me down. Now, I must say, what I've allowed myself to believe is that when you have those many layers, they shape you in a way that it's not always a negative thing. Because I think layers you're peeling them off. You can peel them off and you can grow another layer of something. So I think having gone through the things I've gone through, whether they've been good or bad, and how I've lived through those different parts of my life, they've all shaped me to who I am now.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing. I just think layers, if you peel an orange, the outer layer is not what you want to eat, but once you get on the inside, you indulge.
Yeah,
so for me, it's not what's on the outside, it's what's on the inside. I think certain layers can make a person, some people are not accepting of their layers and they don't live the life that is joyful. And unfortunately, other people suffer because of that. So I think, what's inside of me is going to matter more than what's on the outside of me, because people can see me and say, oh, you look a certain way or you have this. Well, you don't know what I've gone through.
Exactly.
But it has made me a somewhat better person because I've gone through those things. And I think that is what I've learned from having layers. We get to decide how we're going to respond to those things that we've gone through. I don't care what you've gone through. Some people who, have gone through the worst in their lives, they don't know how to take that and use it to the best of their lives. And unfortunately, they may be angry, mean, resentful, and all these other things. Okay, so how do I shift those types of things for myself so that I don't continue to feel that way? Yeah, I may have been resentful when my husband was sick and all these other things were going on, but I had to realize that wasn't who I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And that particular layer I had to take away and start changing and say, you know what, this is not what I get it. I'm human.
Sure.
But I don't want to continue on in my life and be this miserable person because of it. So, to me, it's like just learning how to deal with life's pressures and all of the things that can really get you into a funk, so to speak. But also get out of that funk and kind of just move forward to the next level. And that's how I approach it, because I think, if I stay in my feelings too long, if I stay in this one place too long, it's going to really, really make me burn out and take me to a place where I may not want to be. So
yeah, it can derail you when you get stuck there.
You
really can.
It can.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for that. You're nailing this. I feel like we're going to the school of how to talk through these talking points with Tracy today. This is fantastic. In summary, in living out finding empowerment, embracing layers, talk to me how that's affected your relationship with yourself as well as your relationship with others.
I am so much a loner, and these past several years, I will honestly say I've been very lonely and alone. So my relationship, and I'm very selective about my circle is very small.
Sure. Yep.
So, it's easy. It's kind of easy for me to kind of say how it's affected the quality of my relationships, because I don't have a lot of relationships, unfortunately. But I've also tried to change that to make myself more, not accessible, but I guess available in a positive way, because I don't have a lot of friendships. I think for me, that's just how I've carried myself. And I'm very selective about the people I trust and talk to and things like that. So I've kept my circle small. But for me, knowing that, finding empowerment, number one, for me, has been a growth point for me, because I didn't have a lot of people in my life to help empower me. As a young girl, I didn't have a lot of female mentors in my life. I didn't have a lot of female. I mean, I had females that I grew up around, my aunts, my grandmother, and all of those, but they were not the type of females that pushed me or encouraged me or empowered me, so to speak, in a way that I feel is now in the course of my life that sometimes I've had to find that for myself.
Sure.
So just, being able to, the effect that it has had on my relationships is that, not knowing how to have that push and have that empowerment and trying to discover things for myself, I would say has definitely affected me in a way where it probably affected my ability to really embrace relationships or to have the right kind of relationships. So, and it goes back to me saying how small my circle is. I'm very finicky and picky about people, but at the same time, I would love to have more relationships with people who can enhance my life in a way that I've never felt I've had that enhancement.
Sure. Yep.
So, I think the layers as they fall off have kind of shown me a different side of things when it comes to relationships and how to maybe approach those relationships and maybe define more friendships, because for me it's about friendship.
Yeah.
I haven't really had, since my husband passed, I haven't had any like romantic, anything worthwhile types of relationships. So
sure.
It's and that's difficult for me.
Yeah.
Just because of the whole dating scene and just things are so much different. And I think when you get to a certain age, it's even more difficult. But, I think I'm still peeling the layers and I'm still finding that the work has to be done within me as well. So, I'm kind of, I don't know, in summary, if it's affected the quality of my relationships, or if I just have not been able to define what that means to me when it comes to relationships. That could be part of why I struggle sometimes with that particular explanation. So, I'm still working on me. I'm still a working. Yeah.
But I love your honesty. I love your honesty about this, though, because I think you're not alone. So many of us are in that space, but we're afraid to say it, Yeah. So I really appreciate your honesty about it, because I think more of us are in that space than probably want to say we're in that space.
Yeah. But I think when you I do these little recordings on my phone. I have all these diaries on my phone and I talk things out. And when I talk things out, I find out more about myself than if I was to just talk to a therapist, because I think I'm listening to what I'm saying and I'm thinking about what I'm saying. And sometimes the honesty it's easier for me to be honest when I'm talking to myself. Yeah. And I'm able to come up with a solution or a resolution, or just come up with, what are my next steps? So for me, speaking about this, it's helping me build the mindset that, this is what I got to work on. I need to continue to work on this. And if I don't, then I is it going to help me eventually create more quality in my relationships when I want them? Or is it just something that I need to do for myself?
Yeah, no, I love that. That's a great idea. Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. I like that. I've done a little bit of that, like vocal journaling, because I'm an external processor. And so instead of wearing out my therapist and my people, I will do that. And it is helpful. There's a lot in that doesn't come out when you write. There's power in writing too. Right. But sometimes when you speak it, there's a lot of power in that. So I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you for sharing that. That's a great tool. And we're down to the rapid fire. Name 5 activities that nourish you.
Shopping. Taking walks at the park. I like to walk. Those things really help me clear my mind, and I love nature. So for me, it's nice to be out and outside. Like today, a day like here in Chicago, where we're like 70, 80 degrees, the sun is shining, the birds are chirping. So that's important to me. Sometimes just doing nothing, like maybe watching an old movie or watching old shows, or just sitting on the couch and just kind of, vegging a little bit. Sometimes those moments are nourishing for me, because I need to get back into some energy types of things. And so doing nothing helps me do that sometimes. Other than maybe just talking to my daughter. listening to what she's talking about, even if, she's talking about something that I have no clue,
Yeah. But that connection.
It is. It's the connection, and just watching her and thinking about how she's come from this little baby to this young adult now. That to me is exciting. And I feel so good about it because I've watched her grow. So that's very nourishing to me.
Yeah.
What's another activity I could think of? I don't know. I think those are probably some of my biggest ones. Listening to music is really, really satisfying for me. It really keeps me grounded. And it depends on whether it's gospel, jazz, some R&B, or just old music. I listen to the words of the music, and I think about what people are singing about. And sometimes I apply it to my life, and sometimes I just listen to the words, and it just refreshes me and puts me in a good place. So, yeah,
absolutely. Oh, I like that. That's really good. Okay. And 5 words on how you want to feel the next 6 months.
I want to feel refreshed. I want to feel less anxious. I don't know if that's one word. 2 words.
Yeah, we'll make it that. Yep.
I want to feel comfortable with where I am in that part at that stage of where I'm thinking about it in 6 months.
Sure.
I want to be okay with how my life is going. I mean, I think that may be similar to what I just said, but I guess being comfortable with being okay could be slightly 2 different things, because I think sometimes I'm not feeling okay with where I am in my life. So that's where I want to be. I want to be confident and feel like, everything I'm doing is for a purpose, and I'm okay with it, and I'm confident that it's going the way it's supposed to be. And I mentioned rebuilding my life. I want to feel accomplished.
Yeah.
My hope is to graduate at the end of the year.
Yeah.
That's a goal for me. So, I want to have that accomplishment riding on my back, and me saying, "Hey, I did it. I'm done." So
Dr. Tracy.
Yeah. I'm getting there. Listen,
you are. I think it's amazing. I can't imagine. That is, oh my gosh. I'm like trying to be a doctor right now. I think I would just cry every day.
You just don't know.
All right. Well, Tracy Weems, thank you so much for this. This was such a fantastic conversation. I knew, Brady knew, we all knew you'd have so much to say about these topics and your journey. And I'm just so thankful you were able to take the time to join us today. Audience, go to embracinglayers.com. We'll have sources there that Tracy shares that are helpful to her, that she uses, that she offers. And you're going to probably want to have a notepad with you and go back and listen, because she's got some great feedback for us today on how to walk these things out in life. And it has so much wisdom to share from her experiences and how she approaches things and, living with joy and intention. She does that. You do that so well. So thank you for sharing this with us today. Thanks so much, audience, for being with us. And we're thankful you get to learn from Tracy this week and enjoy the rest of your week. Take care.